Hey girl, welcome back to the Her Best Self show. And today I'm talking about some statistics around eating disorders because it's Eating Disorder Awareness Month. And awareness without action is just simply information. And information without urgency, well, that's just noise. So today I'm going to give you a wake-up call, not to shame you and not to scare you into paralysis, but to show you the truth about what's happening in the eating disorder space right now and some statistics that you probably haven't heard, plus trends that are getting worse, and why, if you're listening to this and you've been stuck in quasi-recovery or denying that you even need help, that now is the time to act. Sis, you're not a statistic, at least not a negative one. So here we go. Hey girl, welcome to the Her Best Self podcast. I'm Lindsay Nickel, former competitive figure skater and perfectionist, turned God-led imperfect boy mom and digital CEO. If you find yourself constantly thinking about food and wondering if you'll wake up one day free from the obsessive thoughts and behaviors controlling your life, then I've created this podcast for you because I know exactly what it's like to be a downright hot mess trapped in a destructive cycle of disordered eating. I finally found freedom and you can too, girlfriend. So if you're ready to heal your relationship with food and body and break the chains of control and show up in your best health, then grab your favorite Tarjay journal and let's get to it so you can start living your best life as your best self. You think you know about eating disorders. You've heard they're serious. You've heard they're mental illnesses. You've probably even heard that they have the highest mortality rate of any psychiatric disorder. But what you might not know is how much worse things have gotten, how the landscape has totally shifted, and how eating disorders are no longer just affecting the stereotypical teenage girl that wants to be a model. They're affecting women all over the globe, yes, men too, and kids, at rates we've never seen before. And if you're over 40 and you're a female who's been battling this for years, who's been in quasi-recovery and who's been telling herself, I'm fine, I've totally got this under control, then I want you to pay attention because the stats I'm going to share with you today, these are no joke. Let's start with the metrics, the ones that should absolutely get you into taking action. 28.8 million Americans will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. That is nearly 9% of the US population alone. And that number has increased 15% since 2020. I want you to think about that. In just 6 years, eating disorders are surging. This is not getting better, friend. This is getting worse. And that is just the US statistics. But here's what you need to know. You are not alone. You are part of something that is so much bigger. It is a crisis. We have come so far, yes, in the eating disorder space, but we also continue to increase the risk for those that are developing eating disorders because of our culture and how we talk about wellness and health. Every 52 minutes, someone loses their life to this horrifying illness. Sis, this is not something that you can just sit with for another decade. This is not something that you can keep minimizing or pushing down. People are literally dying from this. And if you're stuck in it and you're avoiding getting help, then to me, you're just playing with fire. This is not at you. This is so with you because I was playing with fire too. And here's the gut punch. 90% of people suffering right now are not doing anything about it. Did you know that only 10% of people with eating disorders receive treatment? And for women over 40, the numbers are even worse than that. Women are waiting an average of 6 to 8 years longer than younger women to seek treatment. This comes from the National Eating Disorder Association, and it was in review of 2025. So why? Well, I think it's a result of shame. I think it's denial. I think it's the belief that you should so be over this by now, or the fear of being judged, the lie that it's just not bad enough yet, or that you have too much other things going on in your life to be dealing, I say, quote, dealing with this as if it's something that, can just be sitting on a shelf. If you're waiting for this to get worse or you're waiting to feel sick enough, you're already there. I want us to talk about, though, what is changing and the trends that I want you to look out for that should cause you to raise your eyebrows because eating disorders are not static. They're evolving. And I do not mean in a good healing way. Hospitalizations for women age 45 to 65 have increased by 42% in the last decade. And 13% of women over 50 are now engaging in eating disorder behaviors. So I want you to think to yourself, if you're sitting there with, I've been dealing with this forever and I'm just too old, you're wrong. This is exactly the age where women are struggling. And what is really scary is that it's getting worse every single year. These statistics are increasing. Midlife eating disorders are no longer rare. They're actually an epidemic. Here's another trend that I want to make sure I fold into today's show, because social media is feeding this crisis. And here's a stat that should probably make you want to delete every app on your phone, but spending 3 hours or more a day on social media increases your eating disorder risk by 60%. 60%. And it's not just TikTok of what I eat in a day videos or body check content. The Ozempic hashtag alone has over 1.3 billion views. Google searches for Ozempic weight loss increased by 1,200% in the past couple years. But we're not just consuming diet culture anymore. That's what's so scary. We're consuming medicalized weight loss as entertainment, as aspiration, as if this is normal. Sis, you are being bombarded with anti-aging content, with menopausal weight loss ads, with these wellness influencers pushing restriction disguised as health. And if you're on Instagram comparing yourself, or you're on Facebook following fitness accounts that make you feel inadequate, if you're consuming any content that makes you feel like you need to be smaller or that you're not small enough, you're feeding your eating disorder every single day. So I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the weight loss drugs that are normalizing disordered eating in our culture. You've heard of Ozempic, you've heard of Mounjaro, the GLP-1s. Here are the facts. Prescriptions for drugs increased by 300% from 2020 to 2023. And an estimated 12 million Americans are currently using these drugs. But here's the kicker. 60 to 70% of those prescriptions are not even for diabetes. They are simply being prescribed for weight loss. And women represent 63% of these users for weight loss. This is the fastest growing demographic. Sis, you are being sold the idea that you can avoid the natural body that is supposed to come by simply having a weekly injection. This source is from Epic Health Research Network. Go in and research some of these things yourself. But healthcare providers are reporting a 40% increase in patients simply coming to them requesting these drugs who have actually had current or even past eating disorder histories. And 30% of eating disorder treatment centers are now treating patients whose eating disorder was triggered because of the use of these drugs. What's really, truly horrible is that patients with a history of eating disorders are 2.5 times more likely to use these medications. And I just don't understand what it is that we can't see. This is not a miracle moment here. When you stop taking these drugs, many people begin to have rapid weight gain, and this triggers even more disaster because then we see relapse. The Academy for Eating Disorders issued a warning saying that GLP-1 should not be prescribed to individuals with current or past eating disorders without comprehensive mental health evaluation. But is that check actually occurring? How many doctors are really screening for this? And if you are, I'm going to give you props and a huge shout out. But how many women are being handed these prescriptions without anyone really knowing about their history? We know that these drugs suppress your appetite, and they reinforce the eating disorder lie that hunger is the enemy. This is what happens because they sell the lie. They bypass the actual work of healing your relationship with food if you can just fix it with a shot, right? If you're considering any of this as a solution, I need you to ask yourself, am I trying to heal my relationship with my body, or am I just medicalizing my eating disorder? Friend, these questions aren't to shame you. It's to simply bring awareness that this is a concern and our culture needs to wake up to it. That brings me to the next, orthorexia. This is the obsession with clean eating, and this one is highly on the rise right now. It's being marked as health everywhere. You hear people talk about gluten-free and dairy-free and sugar-free and intermittent fasting and cleanses and detox and elimination diets. These aren't just wellness trends. For so many women, these are actually eating disorders in disguise. And I tell you, every single client that I have that comes to me has something, one of these versions of, whether it's I only eat 5 ingredients or less. For myself, it was I count macros. It's because we've made these so socially acceptable. Why? Because they're being praised. Because maybe your doctor at some point has even recommended them. Or maybe someone in the medical space has told you, oh, I don't think that's really disordered, or here are some rules you can follow and live by. These are healthy. But sis, if you have rigid food rules, if you feel anxious eating foods that aren't clean, or if you're restricting entire food groups in the name of health, this is disordered, period. We're not going to make it something it isn't. It's disordered, and it's stealing your freedom, just like any other eating disorder. Now, I want to talk about the post-pandemic mental health crisis because it continues. And even now, 6 years after the pandemic began, we're still seeing the fallout in statistics. Eating disorder cases have increased by 30% since the pandemic. It took away control. It created more isolation and it disrupted routines. And for many people, and I know you know, especially if you're listening to this podcast, when you disrupt someone's routine, you give more power to that coping mechanism. The eating disorder becomes more powerful because she loves routine and she loves control. And even though we're now 6 years later, this mental health crisis continues. Our anxiety is still up, depression is still up, and eating disorders, well, they're still climbing. If your eating disorder got worse during the pandemic, or you've been telling yourself, I'm just going to deal with this later, or maybe it even started after the pandemic, later is now, friend. Later is now. But I don't want this to be a super heavy episode today. I do want to share some good news. We have more awareness now than we've ever had before. We're talking about eating disorders now openly. We're recognizing that they affect all ages, all genders, all body types, and we're seeing more treatment options, more telehealth accessibility, more people speaking up, heck, more client intakes. Recovery rates are strong when people actually see treatment, and that's the key. And when you seek treatment later in life, the outcomes are much better than younger women. And I think the reason why this is because you've been struggling for so long. So the same argument that you're telling yourself, like, oh, I've just been dealing with this for so long, this is just who I am, is actually the same argument for why you're ready to get support now more than ever. So yes, the statistics are terrifying, but recovery is possible. It just starts when you start deciding that you're not going to be a metric and you're not going to define your life by metrics any longer. So I wanted to add part of my personal journey into this show today because years ago, someone told me I was a statistic. They said, Lindsay, you will forever be this way. And I think at the time it really did something to me in terms of I could not see myself living like that forever. I was so terrified of what I was doing to myself, yet I was still in very much denial and I was scared to gain weight. But when I heard you're probably going to struggle with this for the rest of your life and you might be in and out of treatment facilities, but this will always be a part of you, I think in that moment something snapped. For some people that would have become debilitating. But for me, I wasn't angry at the professional that shared this with me. I was angry at the eating disorder. I was angry that it had convinced me that I was powerless and that I had no choice. I was angry that I had let it steal so much time from my life and also steal even the dream of becoming free from it. And so I decided I am not going to be a statistic. I refuse. And sis, this is when life opened up for me because I stopped avoiding the hard feelings. I stopped denying the things that I knew I was doing weren't okay, but I tried to make excuses for the behaviors. And I stopped pretending that I had it all under control when trying to keep it all in control was literally the most challenging thing I've ever done. I got help, I did the work, and I recovered. And you know what? I'm not a negative statistic. I'm a recovery statistic. And I'm good with that because I'm part of the percentage that did get free from it, that reclaimed their life. And I'm not sitting here telling you by sharing that with you that I'm boasting in any way. What I'm saying to you is that should give you hope, because I proved the eating disorder wrong with the terrifying grip that it had over my mind and over my body and life. And you can do the exact same thing. So here's your wake-up call. If you've been stuck in quasi-recovery, or you've been telling yourself, I'm fine, it's not that bad. If you've been avoiding getting help because you're ashamed, because you think you should be over it by now, because you're scared to talk about it, because you don't want to admit that you need help, these statistics are not lies. You're part, friend, of the 90% who isn't getting treatment if you choose to just turn a blind ear. You're part of that crisis, and you're part of the group that's waiting just simply too long to get solid support for yourself. And that is not, again, to shame you, and it's not to guilt you, but it's to go, okay, I'm shaking you, and I hope you hear me. Every day you wait, you're giving the eating disorder more power. Another 24 hours. You're missing out on time, on life, on moments. You're missing out on freedom, on what's waiting for you. And for what? To stay stuck, to keep controlling rigid routines, to avoid discomfort or change? That is so not worth it. You're not worth sacrificing for an illness that is a mind game that is feeding you lies on the daily. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to answer these 3 questions. I'm going to call it the self-assessment. Number 1, am I engaging in behaviors I know are unhealthy, but telling myself that they're not that bad? Maybe you're skipping meals, restricting your foods, over-exercising, weighing obsessively, purging, binging, using medications like the ones we talked about today. Number 2, am I avoiding getting help because I'm ashamed, scared, or in denial? Sis, if you're telling yourself you'll deal with this later, that you can handle it alone, and it's not serious enough, then this is an issue, and it is serious enough. Number 3, is my relationship with food and my body stealing my joy, my energy, my presence, and my life? If you're missing moments, friend, obsessing over your food, obsessing over what your body looks like, sacrificing relationships, and living in constant anxiety, then there is more for you out there. So if you answered yes to even one of these 3 questions, I encourage you today to reach out and get some support. Not next week, not next month, not when it gets bad enough, not when you feel ready enough. Share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe that's a friend, maybe that's your sister, maybe that's your daughter, maybe it's you, and you just need to put it on repeat as you drive around this week. And then I want you to do the self-assessment. Be honest and get real. And if you realize that you need help, reach out. Don't wait another 6 to 8 years. Don't become another statistic. Don't waste this life. And listen, if you're sitting there thinking, I know, I just don't know how to start, I want to invite you to the Recovery Collective or one-on-one support directly with me. You can go on out to herbestself.co, where you can get details on my group support program that meets every other week, and or fill out a client application with me so we can hop on the phone and secure your spot for one-on-one. Sis, this is Eating Disorder Awareness Month. And even though we have more awareness than we ever have before, awareness means nothing if you don't act. So act. Do something today that is going to put you in a better place tomorrow. I love you, girl, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye for now. Oh, friend, thank you so much for letting me share what was on my heart today. My hope for this podcast is to help more women find freedom from food and body. If this has empowered or blessed you, let me know. I'd be honored for your rating and review of my show, and I'd love to connect with you in my private Facebook community. You really can move from perfection to purpose. Let's break the chains together. I'll help navigate the way. Until next time, bye for now, girl.